I used to be one of those people that's like, oh, today's a new day. Everything completely reset when I went to bed. So Sunday cheat days, I would push like 12, 15,000 calories as hard as I could. Just like I would go and then be so confused that like I had zero change over like 3 weeks. I'm like, yo, I'm living Monday through Saturday perfectly and my cheat day's built in, so it doesn't matter. And then when I actually looked at it, I'm like, oh, I'm eating a week's worth of food in one day. That's probably it.
Welcome to Iron Summit, where we cover topics about health, fitness, and general performance through the eyes of former elite Division I wrestlers. All right, we are live with Jordan Wood. Jordan's my good friend, fellow Lehigh wrestling heavyweight, three-time All-American, and first and only five-time EIWA champion. Hopefully that remains only for all of our sake. But
Seriously.
No, Jordan is an absolute stud and someone who definitely I'm excited to talk to because I know takes obviously wrestling super seriously, but his health and training really seriously as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm starting to think you got to either go to Lehigh or be a heavyweight to be on Iron Summit. Now we should put together a book of heavyweights. It's awesome.
Pretty cool. I've been listening.
Ryan's favorite people.
I do like heavyweights, dude. Yeah, I've said this a couple times, but I'm telling you, heavyweights are like the nicest people. I've yet to find a heavyweight I don't like. And my theory is like you guys were, when you were young, you were just a big kid. And so your parents were like, no, you got to be nice to them. And then you just were a nice kid the rest of your life.
Well, still just a big, nice kid. Never been in a fight.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And Jordan, we were talking about this with Matt Brown on the last podcast, the UFC guy. And we were talking about, and you probably identify with this because you have a massive dog as well, but it's the same thing with dogs. Like you have a Great Dane. I have an English Mastiff. They're both so nice. Like little Chihuahuas.
Biggest scared I've ever met. So I got 3-year-old Great Dane named Arlo, and like his tail knocked a coat off of the wall yesterday and it fell. He sprinted onto my lap. He weighs 155 pounds. He body slammed me, gave me a bloody lip, and was just shaking because the coat fell on the ground.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a big dog for you right there. Well, man, that's funny.
Jordan, to start, man, why Lehigh? What made you choose Lehigh? And how'd you come to that decision? You know, when you're making a major life change going from high school to college.
So, my freshman year, I took second at the PA state championships, and my dad and I were looking for a new level of training. And he was doing his research, and he saw that there's the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club and some senior level athletes who are super studs. One of them being Dave Zabriskie. We didn't realize I was eligible to train with the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club. So for about a month and a half, I would come up once a week and we'd pay Dave for private. And it was awesome. Dave Zabriskie is a super stud, national champ for Iowa State heavyweight, but he was wrestling 97 kilos. So I'm like, this guy's perfect. He's like a smaller, more athletic, agile heavyweight. At the time, I was a 220 pounder, weighing like 210. Like this is exactly what I need. About a month in though, Jeff Buxton, who was the coach of the LVAC at the time, he was like, hey, why don't you just come to practice? Like you're eligible. I was like, okay. And I don't think Dave loved that because he was out of private, because that first he just beat the living crap out of me. I was like, oh, this is a different type of Dave. But from then on, the LVAC and the Lehigh room was just unreal for me. Like Max was there, and Max is Max, a Greek god, weighing 245 at the time with a judo background. We had Doug Valero, who was 6'3", 290, just a mountain of a bear of a man. Zach Ray was a national champ weighing about 270. And then Dave Zabriskie was a national champ weighing about 220. So for a heavyweight,
that's a good room.
As a 14, 15-year-old aspiring heavyweight, having those four in the room was unbelievable. And then I was going with Nate Brown, national finalist. Who else was in there? Who else was in there, Max? Because you were there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think around your way. I mean, probably. I don't know if you got to wrestle with
I
Hamlin
did.
at
I went
all
with Bob
at
a whole
the
bunch.
tail end of his
Yeah,
career.
I just
Yeah, I thought you did. And
6 All-American.
like, I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, there was a lot of good guys, heavier guys. That's why. So Jordan and I think we overlapped not at all, actually. I think, yeah. But I felt like I overlapped with Jordan because
Who's
we
there?
wrestled so
Yeah.
much together when he was in high school.
So like my freshman, sophomore year, I fell in love with the coaches and the training situation. And it really felt like I was part of this family. So once I was open for recruiting, everything was getting compared back to Lehigh. I was like, this versus Lehigh, this place versus Lehigh. And I was like, what am I doing? Like Lehigh is my home. And I got the news that I tore my labrum during my junior year, out at the Olympic team training camp. And right there, it was like October going to my junior year, October. I was like, I'm done with this. I don't like the recruiting process. I know where I want to be. I just want to focus on healing and know everything's taken care of. So I came up to Lehigh on like a Tuesday, and in person, I was like, hey, Coach Pat, how do I verbally commit? And he's like, say you're coming. And I was like, oh, I'm coming to Lehigh.
You got to declare it on the top of a mountain.
And then he was like super excited, but then he brought me up to the room and all the guys were like warming up. He's like, everybody come over here, take a seat. Jordan got something to say. And I was like, I'm coming here. And like half of them were like, we already were. Like, congrats, cool. And then just started warming. Most embarrassing, awkward 40 minutes of my life. Going in person
That's
and be
awesome.
like, hey, I verbally commit, coach. Could have been a text. And then I had to tell the whole team, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like, who does this kid think he is? I just get out of here."
I love that. Did it ever
That's
cross
awesome.
your mind though? Like, so I think that's great, and it makes sense because you're in a system, that works for you. Obviously, you have great training partners, and obviously, it was a great
Yeah.
decision. But just thinking about it, did you struggle at all thinking, "Hey, I've kind of seen this whole system. I've grown through this. It would make sense for me to go somewhere else to get a different perspective and get different coaching," or was it like, "No, this is a path I need to be on. I need to stay the course on
So,
this"?
yeah, I've battled that feeling before. Honestly, I felt that when I was in my college career, because then I was at year, 6, 7, 8
Yeah.
with the same system. And I was
Yeah.
getting frustrated when I wasn't having the same success that I anticipated I would have. So I had this trajectory in my mind, and it was here, 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 and then by year 4, year 3, I'm in the finals or champ. And that third year, that I guess that was a COVID year, I was injured the first half of the season, sick for another half, and the nationals got canceled. And so naturally, I didn't have the normal season I wanted. Started picking it up in the postseason, but it got canceled, and I then had a lot of time to reflect. Is this still the right place for me? Right? COVID happened. No contact, no practice. Everything was on our own. So then I kind of like went into my own training system. I was walking around during season like 260. I got down to like 235. I was lean and mean, super good shape going into the Olympic year. And I was like, this is going to be my time. I'm going to make an Olympic team. I'm going to take an Olympic red shirt. This is going to be awesome. And the only thing I had to focus on was training. So that felt really cool. Then the NCAA said, hey, you're coming back for this year. Doesn't count against anybody's eligibility. So naturally, the coaches in January were like, hey, phenomenal news. Let's get you enrolled tomorrow so you can wrestle Binghamton this weekend. Like, you're back. And I was like, no, F you. This is my Olympic year. Like, what do you mean? I'm not coming back. Why would I do that? I'm training for the Olympics right now. And they're like, you can please do both. Like, you're still part of this team, and we would love to have you back, and you can be a 4-time All-American and a 5-time EIWA champ. That's crazy. You're in college. Like, come be a college kid. And I was like, no, I'm a senior level athlete. I'm going to go wrestle these cards and train for the Olympics, and I'm above this college wrestling stuff. And I came back, like not against my will, but at first that's not what I wanted to do at all. I was like, this is awesome.
Right.
And I took a quote unquote bad loss. And instead of pulling my head out of my ass and being like, hey, you kind of got to lock back in and trust your community and your system, I was like, oh, they're failing me. Like they brought me back in. I'm losing. I don't like this place right now. This sucks. And then I had the worst nationals I had in my career. And my first instinct was, well, I'm going to hop in the portal tomorrow because obviously this year didn't go. They don't have it for me anymore. But it was day 3 during the blood round, or no, during the medal matches in the morning. I was sitting next to Coach Pat. We kind of had a heart to heart, and I was like, hey, I just feel like, I didn't develop because I wasn't with, like, you guys didn't really develop me that much this year. And the past year and a half, it's been long and kind of painful. And then he kind of told me the hard truth. He's like, hey, you weren't around for a year and a half. You've been doing your own thing. We've been giving you your space because we believe and trust in you. And it didn't work. Trust us. Like, you have 1 year left. If you could just buy in and trust what we're saying and let us coach you, let us be your system again. We think good things can happen. And I kind of reflected on that a lot. And he was right. I wrote all my own lifts. I did all my own practices with Buxton and whoever I could find at 8 a.m. before I drove an hour and a half to work for 8 hours. Did everything on my own. So from that point on, kind of flipped my mindset. And I was like, this is a system that has bought into me my entire career. And these people are really knowledgeable. And I'm just not listening. I haven't listened the past 2 years. My first 3 years I did. And I got up to 4th my sophomore year. Why not give it a shot and just play dumb? Just dumb, blind faith. And whatever they say, I do. So I went from 235 to my highest of 296 in about 5.5 months. So it was the dirtiest bulk you've ever seen. The first month and a half was pretty clean. It was actually a diet Max sent me my junior year of high school. And I remember when I was in high school, I was like, this is unbelievable. No one can sustain this amount of eating.
Except for Max.
So I did it for a month and a half.
Yeah,
I
Jordan
was like,
can
it's
do it.
coming on, but that's not enough. I need more. So then I bumped up the calories probably double. So I did Max's diet plus as much pizza and ice cream and whatever my heart desired. And I just got thick. I was on the mat once or twice a week. They're like, Jordan,
thanks, Jordan.
We're good at wrestling. We'll develop you in these 3 or 4 areas that you need some work on, but you just need to get big and strong and healthy. And then we're going to let it run. And then I got big, strong, and healthy, and we let it run.
That's so cool.
I'm glad you asked that question, Ryan, because I've never actually heard that full perspective of yours, Jordan. And I think it's something we can all learn from in being coached. And sometimes you just have to trust the system. I went through a similar process at Lehigh, Jordan, and ended up trusting the system, paid off in my way, which I think this is a good segue into kind of the Lehigh heavyweight method, which I think when we talked about it with Zach, so we've already spilled the beans on this podcast, so we don't have to hide anything. But I think the way, and I think it's being adopted more around the country, not everywhere, but certainly where heavyweights are having consistent success, it's being adopted. And so maybe talk a little bit about how Lehigh trains the heavyweights different than the rest of the team, or certainly than the lightweights.
Real quick before we jump on that too, Jordan, I think it is interesting that you had that perspective, because I wanted to see what you thought in terms of, especially with all this transfer stuff that's been going on. It seems like a lot of guys don't do better when they transfer.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably, a lot of reasons, and it's
That's
hard to isolate, but it seems like, I think psychologically, when you feel, I don't know a better word for this, but like comfortable in you're comfortable outside your life, so you can be uncomfortable in your training. It seems like it helps athletes. And so as stale as it can get, being in the same place for, 6 years, in your case, you're there for high school too. So I don't know, 8 years, right? I think there's a certain benefit to that, where you feel comfortable outside of everything, you understand this, and then you got to be engaged in the training, but you can actually get the most out of training, where if you go somewhere else, like a lot of transfers, it's hard to plug in, especially for 1 year and a new system, new people, new places where you experience a lot of
Yeah.
different things.
One more thing on that is kind of relates to what you were saying. With the whole transfer system and just the idea of like being burned out, I think a lot of people forget they like the new shiny bells and whistles, the new things, right? So when the new thing turns into the old thing, it's less interesting. So at first, it's like, oh, this training environment's insane. You know, Coach Pat is a 3-time finalist, 2-time champ, yada, yada, yada. All these guys are so incredible. And then once you've been there for a while, it's like, oh, it's just Coach Pat. That's just Brad and Zach, right? So being able to take a step back and realize the system is still incredible, full of studs. My dad calls it the Jordan Wood effect back at home. At home, I'm just Jordan Wood, right? But then every once in a while, I'll like go to a supermarket and like a little kid will run up to me, and Jordan Wood has a different effect then. And like my friends that'll be with me, like, yo, did that just happen? And then I can be like, I'm okay at wrestling. Like, I know you guys know I wrestle, but I'm probably a little better than you think I am. So it's the same effect can happen where you're training for too long, where you kind of forget how blessed you are with the system and the people that are buying into you, because you're distracted by the new shiny thing that can now just give you money too.
Yeah. It's the grass is always greener on the other side, but it's not. That is with the current transfer rules and the presence of NIL, that becomes so much more tempting. Because I mean, I think, when did the transfer penalty go away? I know when I was if I transferred, I had to think about, do I want to sit out a year? So that was like the
dude. I think it was a year after you. I think, Max, because it was. I think Micic kind of started the run. I don't know. He toppled that. Yeah. That was 2016, 2017.
Because when I had a similar thought process, Jordan, I went through, and is this the right place for me? And ultimately I decided it was, but at that point in time, I was like, if I transferred, I had to sit. So it really made you think twice.
Yeah, that's wild.
But now it's like, why not?
Totally. Back to your other question, Max, about heavyweight training. You set the precedent here, and then I kind of took it and ran with it, and we created Heavyweight Club, which is incredible. So
Fat Man Club.
We call it. It's amazing.
We prefer heavyweight.
Listen,
we prefer heavyweight. Right?
That was no slander there. We had it was called Fat Man Club in high school, where you had to be able to pass like eating tests to get in the Fat Man Club. So it didn't matter your size; you just had to be able to put down food. So I'm not talking.
So and Jordan, Ryan still says he can eat.
He doesn't get it.
He really, I don't believe it. And then last time I tried to challenge Ryan, he had like a whole litany of excuses. It was like he was eating a big meal the day before, and he's not feeling great. His stomach hurts a little bit.
We were at nationals. I'm working, and Max was like, "Yeah, let's eat a bunch of food."
Here we go.
I go, "Hey, Max, I got to go sit in a corner and run around all day. I don't think."
Yeah, you know what Jordan would have said? Jordan been like, anytime.
Hey, Jordan's a trenches guy, and I'm just hoping that I get there one day.
Yeah. When I was into my peak bulking phase, I didn't feel full. I just felt tight. Like, I never felt discomfort, just got tighter. So I could put more down.
Yo, clip that.
There was
I'm not
that
full.
was a good,
I'm just
that's tight. A good
my neighbors, they were on the volleyball team. And one of their dads was just like the friendliest dude ever. And he's like, "Hey, I hear you're like trying to put on as much weight as you can. Come out to dinner with us. I'm going to feed you." We went to this Italian restaurant, and this is when I hit 297. Like, I just was the tightest I've ever been, but I could keep eating. And he's like, "This guy just had 2 entrees, half the pizza, calamari, all this. Here, take his cannoli. Can you eat it?" I had like this 7-course. It was like, put it all down, rolled into the car, and like, "How are you feeling?" "Well, I can't breathe, but I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you."
A little tight.
It's a little tight. But anyway, back to the heavyweight club.
So my redshirt freshman year, I wasn't as much a part of it. If Doug needed me as a partner, which was probably half the week, I was there, I was part of it. But I was training with the team and getting my morning workouts in. So I was doing 6 to 7 mat workouts a week. And I was still young and fresh. So I loved it and I needed that, I think. But that next year, once I started getting into the varsity matches, which puts a completely different strain on your body, I realized, I might need to have to tweak this a little bit. And Zach was a big proponent of like, hey, you don't need to be on the mat this much. You are one of those youth wrestlers that's been to every tournament in the country 5 times. You've wrestled 500 matches. You have matches under your belt. You just need to stay healthy, get big and strong. You're a 220 pounder trying to come up to heavyweight. So let's sharpen your skills when we need to and stay fresh. Then we took it and ran with it. At the time, Jeff Buxton was there too, and he was kind of like my personal coach through high school. And when we were having heavyweight practices, he was there every single time. So the individual attention was pretty special. Being able to have like 2 coaches just telling you what to do for an hour straight. I believe I made some really big jumps. And now heavyweight practice has kind of grown and it's bled into the 97s and a little bit of the 84s. So now it's just like an actual stylistic and room space management thing where it's like, hey, big guys, go upstairs and punch each other in the head, work on some bigger guy technique, things that work better at the heavier weights, and also get out of our way so you don't fall on us and break us. And that happens probably twice a week. So it's cool. What my favorite thing that we do right now is just like 3-minute spars. We'll do 10 of them. Everybody touch everybody. The biggest heavyweight with the smallest 84, you just go. So you get 9 different feels in the matter of a 45-minute span, and you leave exhausted and healthy. The biggest part is healthy because since you're wrestling guys of different sizes but still big, I can focus on my speed rather than my strength. Where if I'm wrestling Nate Taylor, I'm focusing on using everything I have to still big brother him because he's just too big and strong.
Big dude. And then what, because when I was in college, it started with like the hard wrestling training frequency came down quite a bit for the big guys. So the like 3 times a week ish, depending on matches. So is that where you're sticking with?
We're about 3. We're bumped it up to 4 actually. So as of right now, Nate Taylor wasn't one of those guys that needed a million matches in his youth. He needs to get the experience in the mat time and his shape, working on that during the off season, make sure his cardio's up. So we're at 4 right now, but the intensity of those 4 is less. So like Max, when we were doing 3, 1 or 2 of those days was a bloodbath. Now it might just be one of those days on match day. So it's 2 matches of bloodbath where the rest is, hey, we're putting 5 minutes on the clock. It's live, but don't squeeze, don't hurt each other. So it turns into more of like that new spar flow mentality that's kind of taken the wrestling world by a craze, right? We're flowing, we're not squeezing, everything's more fun. It's not as much of a grind and a war. It's, hey, we're going to wrestle for 20 minutes. We're going to wrestle hard, get into positions, have fun, stay healthy, instead of let's have 3 fist fights in the next 10 minutes. Whoever bleeds wins. So that type of intensity has been dialed down a lot. But it's been my goal to bring it back on Fridays. So I do think that mentality of flowing and scoring is really awesome for the sport, except for when you wrestle a guy who still believes that a fist fight is the only way. Because if you don't match that intensity, you kind of get smushed. Even if you are the better technician, if a guy headbutts you, pulls you under and just pummeling you, you got to be able to punch back. So it's important that on that 4th day of heavyweight club, we start punching each other a little bit while flowing. I started doing that personally 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've experienced really good stuff because of it.
That's a super interesting point because it's not only how many times you get on the mat, but the intensity of those training sessions and how you're going and like implementing the live wrestling. It makes a big difference. That's a really nice point. The nuance for that, because I'm helping coach high school kids now. So you have to be pretty good to flow.
Yeah, you do.
So it's something I'm working on and trying to teach these guys, but it's not like something a lot of high school kids have the ability to do just like right out of the gate.
They're good at
I
squeezing.
think it's a good point too.
They're squeezing a lot. Yeah.
Well, you're also on a different part of your journey, right? Like Jordan was saying, like if you wrestled a lot growing up, you probably don't need as many practices. But like most guys in college, I remember a distinct like after your sophomore year, by junior year, it's like, hey, you need to listen to your body a little more. You have some mat time under your belt. Like make sure you're taking care of your body and doing the right things. Where it might be right for the freshman to get a little bit more, I don't know, overtrained, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and the coaching staff here is pretty spectacular with that sentiment, where once you put your time in, so you're a sophomore, junior, going into your third, fourth year, if you show them that you are committed and driven and work really hard, then they will take everything you say like to the T. Like, hey, if I need a day off when I was in college, I could say, hey, I'm not feeling great, and they would like force me off the mat. Like, Jordan, go home, lay down, take a nap. You're off the mat for 3 or 4 days. I'm chronically sick. Like every 5 or 6 weeks, I get a cold, and that's just how my life is. So it was the EIWA Championships, my second to last year. I got done the EIWAs, sick as a dog. 2 days later, I'm like, you aren't touching a mat until 2 days before we leave for nationals, and that drove me insane. But it's exactly what I needed. So I was like, can I just come in and do like a 30-minute drill? No. What you need to do is sleep and hydrate and heal right. So I've seen them do that with other guys. And I think it's a pride thing that a lot of college wrestlers are either too prideful or too afraid to tell a coach that they're beat up. Because a few years ago, when we had like our post year review with the administration, a lot of guys were saying like, hey, the coach is like, we're too beat up and we go too hard. And, I'm always hurt and injured. And I kind of stuck up for them in that meeting. And I was like, does anyone talk to the coaches when you feel like that? That next year, the mentality kind of changed, where when they're authentically hurt or beat up and need a time off, all they had to do is talk to the coaches. Like, yeah, either go light, adjust, or if it's a day where they need to push through, they'll explain to them, today we really need you to push through. It's designed to be this way. You're supposed to feel beat up. If you're not injured, we're going.
Yep. That's really cool. That's that two-way trust, but it does take building that. And you can't abuse it as an athlete. But I think, that is a really cool thing about the elite wrestling world and coaching wrestlers of caliber that are at Lehigh or Division I in general. Let's get into some meathead stuff. Second half of the podcast, talk about diet, nutrition. First of all, just take us through what you're doing now, work wise. I know you're doing some work with Lehigh, and what a day in the life of Jordan Wood looks like. We always like to ask people that so people can understand, look, you can focus on your health, your training, your diet, and have a busy schedule.
So I do have a busy schedule. I am the Assistant Director for Athletic Leadership Development and Sports Performance at Lehigh, the ADALDSP, I like to call it. I'm also the resident athlete for the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club, and I may become the executive director of South Mountain Way, which is one of the Lehigh Wrestling NIL initiatives coming up. So I got a lot of hats that I wear. And in the summer, it looks a little different, but like during the semester, a normal day looks like I wake up around 5:30, get a quick meal to go, like some fruit and some yogurt and some skyr. Go run 1 or 2 lifts of various different teams. Then I go have my own workout, whether that's wrestling or lifting. Then I will be in the office for probably 3 or 4 hours doing some leadership development work, and then go home, grab another meal, let my dog out, come back, hit my next training session, and then go home and fuel and recover. So it's a little bit of bouncing around between my different roles, but everything is locally central to this side of the mountain. So all of my jobs are in one building essentially. So it's very, very doable.
And so talk a little bit about how do you prepare your meals? Like what, any tips you have there? Because when you're that busy, you can't cook. Like something people think when they think of healthy eating is like, you got to cook each meal fresh, which is just not possible when you have a busy schedule.
That was my biggest realization when I did take the ADA LDSP job, because I was a resident athlete for a full year, which meant all I had was one practice and one lift a day, essentially. And it was even less than that because I was injured for half of it. I'm just getting over that injury now. So I'd be wrestling 2 to 3 times a week. Lifting, I bumped it up to like 6 days a week just because that's the only thing I could do healthily. But between that, I had all the time in the world. So every single meal was fresh and I was loving it. And then took this job and realized quickly, if I don't have my lunchbox with me with food in it, I'm not getting the food in or not getting the quality of food in that I need in that day. So I take it to just the basics. Food is fuel for me right now when I have a busy schedule. So I got a nice, like a gigantic rice cooker. I got a huge pan. So I make a whole bunch of rice. I make a whole bunch of some sort of ground meat, typically a 90% lean ground beef. And I have those 2 tubs sitting in my fridge. And it's the night before. I'll scoop 6 to 8 ounces of both of them in a bowl, go to my fridge, pick a sauce, dump it on there, and I have 4 different flavors of beef rice. And that's my meal. I'll also some sort of fruit and veggie as well, just to kind of hit the micronutrient goals. But mostly it's, people know I got my chicken and my rice or my beef and rice. It's super basic and quick and easy to prep. So my lunchbox with my name, wood engraved on the side, walking into the office with 3 bags, 2 half-gallon jugs of water, and beef and rice. So just every 3 hours, throw some beef and rice down the hatch and we're good to go.
I love that.
I'm laughing because you just described exactly my day. How I do it.
Well, and you think about it too, when you're busy, you save cooking now compared to what you cooked last year, you're probably saving an hour a day, over the course of 365 days, you're adding years back on your life. And obviously there's times you need to spend time cooking and do different things, but being more efficient with stuff like that gives you so much more time to get more out of your day. I guess, what are your specific goals right now, and how do you think about fueling? How far out are you fueling from a workout? I know different people have different stomach issues, but it's definitely a big thing. I felt on with guys on my team in college where it was some guys could eat right before, feel fine. Some guys were I really don't want to eat that much, but they'll have a big lunch before. How do you feel about fueling before a workout and then after a workout, and how your stomach feels with
Totally.
that stuff?
So my goal right now is I'm trying to lean out a good amount and then put a little bit of weight back on the right way, just for general health. I have different philosophies for what weight and power you should be at for competing at heavyweight. And right now I'm trying to achieve my philosophy of big and strong is good, but doing it the right way. Because I had to do it kind of the wrong way originally, because I was short on time. And if you need to put on mass quickly, you either have to cheat with steroids or cheat by eating a lot and getting fat and tight.
Yep.
Got it nice and tight. The skin shows it around the belly. But my goal is to get unfat as possible and then get re-ripped. With training, my fueling around training, I actually worked with Max a little bit recently. And it's, we have very similar philosophies. It's keep the protein really high, be in a very small or slight caloric deficit, enough that we're losing about 1.5 pounds a week. And make sure that you are fueling your training sessions the most, especially with the carbohydrates. So in the morning, I'll make sure that I am being appropriately fueled through higher carb, medium protein, lower fat meal before my workout. And then essentially between my 2 workouts, if I had to, that's where the bulk of my calorie and carbohydrate intake will come. And then my dinner meal, my post-workout fuel is higher protein, a little bit higher fat, and essentially just hitting those macro goals. Something I've come to find in my experience is whether I'm having 1 meal a day or 10 meals a day, it doesn't really matter as long as you're hitting those goals. It obviously is more optimal to spread it out and time those workouts better. I'm finding that I'm feeling a lot better having that pre-workout carbohydrate and intra-workout carbohydrate. But I've done it before where I only have like 2 meals a day and I don't feel the best in the workouts, but I get the end goal that I want.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think something that people make a mistake when dieting, whether bulking or losing weight, is they think like my body resets overnight somehow. Like it's a your metabolism is a continuous engine. So it really is more important about just like hitting your general calorie before the timing of things. But to your point, Jordan, like if you're trying to maximize how you feel during individual workouts, then it does start to matter more what you're doing. And also I think it's because Jordan mentioned he's in a slight caloric deficit, but Jordan's slight caloric deficit is still quite a bit of food.
So I mean, there's times where, like last week, I sit down, look at MyFitnessPal, I'm like, crap, I need to put like 600 more calories in my body right now, but I don't want to do that. So nothing is. I always say I would rather be in a slight caloric deficit. So if I'm losing weight slowly, I prefer that over gaining weight quickly. I don't know if this makes sense, but like everyone talks about, would you rather cut weight or gain weight? If we're doing it slowly, I would rather lose weight 10 out of 10. And if we're doing it quickly, wait, no, I think I have that backwards.
No, I think I get what you're saying. So you'd rather cut weight slowly than gain
100%.
weight slowly, but cutting weight quickly sucks more than gaining weight quickly.
Yeah. So like gaining weight quickly did suck, but I will never, ever, ever say that it was worse than cutting 20 pounds in about 3 days, because that is a lot. This Dairy Queen is so hard to put down. I know for a fact I have a lot of friends that would, do a lot of bad things to have like a water bottle. So cutting weight is worse than gaining weight, but I think gaining weight slowly is a lot harder than losing weight slowly. Being slightly discomforted with eating too much food isn't as unbearable to me as having a little grumble in my tummy, because I don't know, that grumble makes me think like it's working.
Little grumbles in the tummy.
And maybe that's just a heavyweight bias because we're so used to being full all the time. I don't know if you've noticed this, Jordan, but like I'm so used to being full and like pushing my calories to maintain a certain size or grow that when I get to cut weight now, it's like
it's exciting.
I'm hungry. I enjoy eating.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day too, though, Max. Like, we are kind of talking about it last episode, how, when you travel, you can lose some weight and stuff. But I mean, part of that is you're forcing your body to sit at a different equilibrium than what it's used to. Like your body naturally, your genetics, like, yeah, you probably have, great genetics to build muscle, but you've put on more muscle than what your body wants to
100%.
hold. So you have to really you have to eat a lot to maintain that. Your body's natural inclination is like, I want to pare down this muscle. And so when you're going against like your body's natural inclination, it's a lot of work and a lot of consistent work. Like you can't have these huge swings where one day you're, under by 1,000 calories and the next day you're over 700 calories. And just like, it's tough for your body. Right. So I think that being an elite athlete and kind of changing and molding your body a different way than genetically it wants to sit, it takes a long time for your body to get used to that and be like, hey, this is where I want to actually be.
Yeah. Agreed.
100%.
And kind of going back to what going back to what Max said with the clock doesn't reset once it hits midnight, right? Your caloric intake is continuous. So like if you look at it over a month, how many calories did you take in or take out? It kind of works that way. I used to be one of those people that's like, oh, today's a new day. Everything completely reset when I went to bed. So Sunday cheat days, I would push like 12, 15,000 calories as hard as I could. Just like I would go and then be so confused that like I had zero change over like 3 weeks. Like, yo, I'm living Monday through Saturday perfectly and my cheat day's built in, so it doesn't matter. And then when I actually looked at it, I'm like, oh, I'm eating a week's worth of food in one day. That's probably
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Your caloric average on the week was still like 5,000 because that
Yeah.
one day. No, that's so true. And Ryan, to your point, I think that's like, it's called your body's set point, like genetically, where does it want to be? And then, yeah, and it fights you harder at first. So you got to have more effort to change your body, whether it's down or up at first. And then over time, get easier and easier. Now I've been being a meathead for so long, like my body just, I think my like 250 is pushing it. 240 is like where I'd probably sit if I just ate what I wanted.
Yeah.
But that's probably 20 pounds more than it would have been, 5 years ago,
Right.
just because it was consistently pushing that. And then I've also noticed, and this is something I bet both of you guys can, just because you've paid attention to these things for a long time, but sometimes I will just naturally fluctuate. My body will just want to add weight for like 3 weeks. And I'll just keep my caloric. It's happened to me right now. My calories have been exactly the same for the past, I don't know, 6 weeks, because I'm competing at 242 in powerlifting. And I was staying really close to that. And all of a sudden I'm like, my body's I'm like at 248. I'm like, what is happening? But then
Alexis is sliding in some olive oil into your meat.
yeah, she's
I know
sabotaging
exactly
me.
what she's doing, Alexis. I'm on you.
She's sabotaging me. But then like 4 weeks ago, I was losing weight. Like I was
Yeah.
like down to 242 and like, wait, why is this happening? So there's also just natural like fluctuations that happen as well.
For sure. And maybe it has to do with stress too, or better sleep or something, but it is weird, like your body will I think it's really hard for your body to like it's like you're like on autopilot in like a helicopter. It's hard to like float, so it like kind of goes up and down a little bit. The
That's a
problem
good way
is
to, good metaphor, right?
but the problem is when you're trying to time like a weight cut sport, you got to try to find
Oh,
the low
tide.
swing, which isn't going to be every single week. But
Right.
but Jordan, hey, I want to ask you. So, like, what does your lifting look like right now? So you're trying to lean out, right? But you obviously want to stay big and
Yeah.
strong. What's your training?
So my
looking like?
philosophy with that is it doesn't matter what training you do. If you're trying to lean out, it's purely the diet, 100%. So, my training,
My
I'm
man.
trying to remind myself as of this week, actually, I'm a wrestler. I'm back to wrestling. I thought I was done for a little bit because I'm dealing with this hip lower back injury that's gone undiagnosed for almost 2 years now. Found a solution probably 4 months ago, and I'm able to actually pick it back up. But for the past year, I've been training with kind of the understanding that when this Olympic cycle's done, Jordan's probably just gonna be done. He might go into coaching, might go into athletic leadership. He's liking that. So I've been lifting like a meathead, which is so fun. It's so fun to go in there and just hypertrophy, slow, controlled reps, lower the weight a little bit, drop the ego, and just get the pump. But as of this week, I need to remind myself that lifting is supplemental to my training right now. So kind of raising the intensity and substantially lowering the volume and making sure that the splits are timed far enough that I have full recovery and the lifts are meaningful. I can't worry about the show anymore. I just need to be able to function as a wrestler. So my intensity is high, volume is low. Probably if I'm going in like today, I got quads and calves. I'll hit back squat, again the belt squat, do some calf raise, and then I'll go to the leg extension and do my single leg extension into Bulgarian split squat complex, and I'll get out of there. I'll do it super hard, but that's it. And I will be sore and I will grow from it and I will have really tangible good things come from it. It's just not going to be the session that I used to have, which was probably an hour and a half long, coming out of there dripping sweat, wanting to throw up. But, you know, it's a different intention now.
So true.
I think it makes a lot of sense, dude. I totally learned that. Like, I think I was still kind of learning it in college, but once I started coaching, where it was like, I didn't have this thing hanging over my head of like, I got to feel good for this competition. I was like, oh, I'm doing way too much volume in the gym. And I would just like do that. And then I'm wrestling sometimes more than I would if I was competing because, I could do individuals with guys and then wrestle in the afternoon. And then we travel and you're warming up this guy and then this guy. And it took me a long time to realize I was doing way too much volume lifting because I would just start like I I'd tweak my back or I'd have like a rib kind of move and so I'd start like getting like these minor injuries and I'm like, okay, I need to like actually pull back the volume on this
Yeah.
lifting because the goal isn't to like your body can't handle that. Your body just sees stuff as stress. And so when you're stressing it a lot is wrestling and then stressing it a lot lifting, it's like something has to
Yeah.
give. So I think it's a great point. Like you got to know your goal. You can still crush it, but you need to have appropriate
100%.
volume in terms of your training.
Yeah. Like last week, I was at
Yep.
the U.S. Olympic team camp. They had it in Lancaster, so at the Spooky Nook Sports Complex, an hour and a half from us. I was there the whole week, but the way the U.S. Olympic team camps go, it's typically, if it's a 5-day camp, 2 workouts, wrestling Monday, 2 on Tuesday, 1 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, 2 on Friday. In years past, I would either skip a session or add lifting onto it. And I kind of I finally bit the bullet and I'm like, hey, I'm a wrestler. I'm here to wrestle. This is wrestling camp. So it's going to stink. I'm not going to lift this week. I'll get back into it next week. But this week, I have to sacrifice my lifting to grow as a wrestler because I am a wrestler and that's why I'm here to develop my skills, get my hands on as many guys as possible. Missing one cycle will not hurt me in the long run, but the intangible skills that I could learn can make a difference.
Yeah. And this is something I probably wish I'd realized more as a wrestler, and I realize more and more now as I've become more experienced in training, is that week off of lifting is actually probably good for your
Yes.
lifting. It's just when you're such a meathead, it's hard in that moment to realize it from multiple perspectives. You need to deload, you need to reset your nervous system, all that kind of thing, accompanied with wrestling. Let's face it, wrestling isn't like you're not going in there and playing, patty cakes.
Hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It's physical. You're not going to lose any muscle mass if you're wrestling hard. Maybe if you did it for 6 months without lifting, but like for a week, if anything, you're just conditioning, you're deloading your nervous system from heavy training, and it's going to make your training more effective going forward. So yeah, it's hard to remind yourself of those things. Like I always joke that like I never take intentional deloads. It's always forced deloads through like injury or sickness.
Yeah.
And it's something Ryan and I have talked about too. Like I'm trying to be much more intentional with my deloading from lifting because that you're actually much more effective.
That's
I think too, that's like zooming out, like you guys were talking about a little bit earlier with like, hey, if I have a cheat meal that's 12,000 calories on Sunday, I'm over my calorie for the week. Well, your body also like understands like from a macro level, because like you said, if you go on vacation and you're like feeling bad because it was 4 days and you missed workouts, but then you come back and you feel super strong, your lifts are exactly where they were. Like we even talked about it a little bit, Max. I was, non-weight bearing for a month with my ankle. And like, I definitely like lost some muscle in my leg, but it comes back so quickly because it's like almost, I don't know, like it takes a long time to lose a lot of muscle, especially if you hop back on the horse when you get back into your routine.
Yeah. I've seen studies where it's like, you don't even, and there's difference. Like the thing that's scary is when you don't lift, you stop storing glycogen. So then you look smaller and you feel smaller. But the actual science of like losing muscle mass is you start losing like grams of muscle after 2 weeks of no resistance training.
Yeah.
So it's like not, so if you take a month off, you're probably lost like 10 grams of actual muscle mass.
One caveat
which is not very much.
One caveat to that is like, know your audience. Like we're talking to like people that are training all the time, it's part of your life, you're prioritizing it. I think most people probably naturally, life happens, they get deloads
Also true.
because, their kids get them busy, their work gets busy, they miss 3 or 4 days. So like their deloads are already programmed in, probably don't add them on top of that. But if you're like crushing it all the time and you're probably constantly like overtrained, this is where I think this is helpful.
Yeah, we're coming at it from this side of the spectrum. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, Jordan, I have a question for you. Let's go favorite. We're going to do most effective, or what you like, most effective exercise. We'll start with favorite. So like meathead, favorite push exercise, favorite pull exercise, and favorite leg exercise.
Favorite push exercise would be the incline Smith press. I love it.
Okay. Nice. I like it.
Just good feel.
My favorite pull is a weighted negative pull-up. I like to just put as much weight around my waist as I can, jump up, squeeze, and then just get drugged down against my will. And then my favorite leg exercise is probably
calf raises.
I do enjoy calf raises, but
really,
I do. I'm trying to grow my calves. I've got those genetics of bad calves, but I'm going to beat them.
Me too.
I feel like everybody has those genetics. Like, does anybody really? There's like 1% of the population with good calf genetics.
And it's those kids that like walked around on their tippy toes.
My favorite leg exercise is probably a barbell back squat, just for all the benefits of it.
Let's go.
Those are 3 good ones. The negative pull-ups, that's unique. That's awesome though. I mean, talk about something that's really going to focus on just giving you a big old back.
Just meat.
That'll do it. Big back, big arms. You're kind of getting everything with that. All right. Now what's the most effective, in your opinion, push, pull, and leg exercise? And let's make this a little easier. Let's go most effective for like developing wrestling based strength. Because all 3 you mentioned are probably super effective for growing muscle.
So most effective for wrestling. For pushing, I don't know if any of them are very important. I think they're really important for balancing out the pulling you have to do for wrestling. But I guess it would be some.
No, you got to push. Like I had to do a lot of bench press so I could push people off when I'm on my back.
When you're on your back, get off. I would say it would be some sort of either incline or shoulder press at the heavyweight level, because you're in a stance driving and thumb blocking a lot. So being able to, and that's not a joke. Zach Ray, he is incredible with thumb block. You're done there. You're not getting through his arm.
You're done.
It's so annoying. Yeah, it's really annoying actually. How effective he is.
So I think some sort of incline press or shoulder press for shoulder stability, keeping your shoulders strong. A pull, some sort of straight arm pullover or a row, being able to engage those elbows into those back pockets and pull a leg in, I think is really important. And then a back squat, I think, is just, it brings so many benefits of toughness and strength and coordination, mobility. So being able to put a bar in your back and move it, I honestly think that the biggest part is the grittiness. If you're able to put a heavy weight on your back, like we were talking about earlier, intensity, for me, I just pop all these veins in my face and my neck, but it kind of unlocks this new level of intensity that not many people experience. So being able to fire all those neurons, you don't get that experience anywhere else. So when you're on the mat, everything's awake, and once you're not sore anymore. And I feel like I don't know if this is a real thing, it's like unlocked more of my muscle capability just because I'm using more of it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely real. You're increasing your effectiveness of firing those muscles. Here's and Ryan and I have talked about this before, like the biggest indicator for vertical jump, like in progressing your vertical jump, is not doing more vertical jumping, it's squatting
100%.
more. So it makes total, like in wrestling, and especially with the importance of being able to get your hips under your head and be powerful there, like a barbell back squat's so good for teaching that.
It is weird though. Like, I'm a huge proponent of strength training. I think you should 100% be doing it. I think it's super important for wrestling. But there are these anomalies that, like, they're either stupidly strong in the gym or stupidly weak in the gym that are like the opposite in wrestling. Like, I've had teammates that were so strong. I was like, holy, like this should transfer over really well, and it just doesn't into wrestling. And then there's some wrestlers that are super weak in the gym that you wrestle them and you're like, wow, they like they have a strong feel. It's really
Yeah.
different. So there is like an outlier too with a certain level of like being able to recruit your muscles in functional strength. And I don't even know how to put it. Like, I think strength training is super important, but there is weird anomalies to
I
that
know
rule
exactly
too.
what you're talking about, and a lot of people chalk it up to positioning, but it's different. I have good positioning. These people feel like freaks when they're in that same position. But when they're in the
Yeah.
weight room, like, I'm
Yeah.
so much stronger than you. So, like you said, I guess there is some recruitment that they're able to tap into when they're in wrestling positions that I think if you're able to train more, which is, I think, done through wrestling. Um, my dad's a personal trainer. He owns a gym, and he often, growing up, when he was training me, was, "Hey, we're in the weight room to get strong. So that's the only thing we're doing in the weight room. You'll get in shape in the wrestling room, and you'll learn how to use that strength in the wrestling room. So you're not inherently going to be a stronger wrestler. You're going to be a stronger human, and being able to transfer that strength into your wrestling positions through technique and confidence. That's when you'll jump level."
Yeah. That's such an awesome point. And I think it's something where a lot of people go wrong is in the weight room, they really try and like recreate
Yeah,
wrestling. They're doing like hammer swings and tire flips because they're like, this is what you do when you wrestle. But if you look at it that way, you should just wrestle
100%.
more,
Yeah.
because what's more specific to wrestling than
Yeah.
wrestling? Nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, go in the weight room, do it right. Listen to like change your volume, change your intensity, but do the exercises that are proven to work in the weight room, and then go wrestle.
yeah, that's the secret to success. Everybody, we did it.
That's it.
I
We
love it.
unlocked it. I think that's a perfect place to end, Jordan. We'll definitely, I want to, next time we get you on, if you're open to that, get you on, pick your brain more on the mental side of things. But today, really focused on your training and diet and experience being a Lehigh heavyweight, and appreciate your time, and really, really fun to have you on the podcast, and always have thought super highly of Jordan Woods. So
Yeah.
glad we could
Yeah.
talk to you.
Thank you,
Well,
Jordan, for coming,
Max,
man.
yeah,
You're the
that
man.
was awesome. I love talking about my experiences, and anytime you want me to hop back on, I'd love to.
Let's go. We'll do another big, heavyweight. Us big guys got to stick together. Stay tight.